Exclusive Buyer-Broker. Exclusive Employment Agreement, BBEEA. This document is to be utilized when establishing an exclusive relationship with a buyer before presenting any properties to them. It forms a binding, two-way exclusive agreement, often involving the buyer paying a retainer fee or just a commission. It should be signed during the initial discussion of agency with a buyer, with the buyer's full knowledge and approval. The use of the Buyer-Broker Exclusive Employment Agreement, BBEEA, was not widely embraced in Arizona. This new BBEA revision is a required must. The BBEA establishes a binding, bilateral commitment, akin to a listing agreement. Brokers, particularly in commercial, industrial sectors, mandate its use. The new BBEA is supported, and agents should be educated on how to use this new form when working with buyers. You can negotiate the commission and make the buyer understand that you may be paid by the seller, and that would credit what you and your buyer agree to. If you read it over and chew on this form, it would be easier for you to explain it to your buyer and have them be comfortable with it. Despite resistance, there is a compelling case for using the new form. Agents may recall instances when buyers they were working with independently purchased a property, resulting in frustration and no commission. Again, you have value and should be compensated for that. Get that BBEA explained to your buyers and be secure that you will receive compensation from them with possible credits from the seller. As a bilateral agreement, both parties in the Buyer-Broker Exclusive Employment Agreement have specific obligations, similar to a listing agreement. The listing agent commits to marketing the property using available tools and forms, while the seller agrees to make the property accessible for showings and pays the broker if the property sells. This mutual commitment is a key aspect of the bilateral contractual agreement between the buyer and the broker. The compensation section of the agreement allows the licensee to request compensation from the buyer under certain circumstances where the seller may not negotiate compensation. Buyer never owes commission without written Buyer-Broker Employment Agreement issue. The broker is representing the buyer and has shown the buyer numerous homes over several weeks. One home, which was not on MLS, was shown to the buyer. The buyer then directs his sister, a licensed real estate broker, to write an offer on this home, and the transaction closes. Is the broker that showed the buyer this home entitled to a commission from the buyer? Answer: no. Under the statute of frauds, a buyer's broker must have a written employment agreement with a buyer in order to be paid a commission by the buyer. CARS, Par 44-1017. Note: no written agreement is required between brokers for the payment of a commission, e.g., if the listing broker tells a buyer's broker that, "I will pay you a 5% commission if you find me a buyer," and the buyer's broker finds a buyer, the listing broker will owe the buyer's broker a 5% commission. Similarly, verbal amendments to a co-broke commission agreement between brokers are enforceable, but such an agreement must be in writing to avoid disputes. Arizona Realtor R. Digest. November 2008. A buyer-broker agreement must specify the amount of the commission agreed upon to be enforceable facts. The licensee and prospective buyer entered into an Arizona Realtors R. Buyer-Broker Exclusive Employment Agreement, BBEEA, for a 6-month term. The amount of the agreed-upon compensation on lines 33-36 of the BBEEA was left blank. The licensee showed the potential buyer dozens of houses during the first 2 months of the BBEA. The buyer then stopped contacting the licensee. The licensee discovered 4 months after the execution of the BBEA that the buyer had closed escrow on a different property without the assistance of the licensee. The licensee demanded a commission from the buyer per the terms of the BBEA. The buyer refused, claiming the BBEA was not enforceable because lines 33-36 specifying the commission were left blank. Issue: is the licensee entitled to a commission from the buyer? Answer: probably not. Discussion: agreements for real estate services are governed by ARS, paragraph 32-2151-2A, which provides all real estate employment agreements shall. 1. Be written in clear and unambiguous language. 2. Fully set forth all material terms, including the terms of broker compensation. 3. Have a definite duration or expiration date, showing dates of inception and expiration. 4. Be signed by all parties to the agreement. Thus, the terms of broker compensation are required to create an enforceable agreement. See Young v. Rose, 230, Ares 433, 286, P3D 518, Appears 2012. Buyer-broker agreement not in compliance with ARS. Paragraph 32 and 2151.02 is not enforceable. Because lines 33 to 36 of the BBEEA were left blank and the parties did not agree to the amount of compensation, the licensee is probably not entitled to compensation from the buyer. Commission agreement must be in writing facts. Agent represents a buyer seeking to purchase property from a developer. The developer has not listed the property for sale through the MLS. Issue: how can the buyer's agent ensure collection of a commission? Answer: see discussion. Discussion: the buyer's agent can request that the buyer sign a buyer-broker exclusive employment agreement. Pursuant to that agreement, the buyer agrees to compensate the agent directly through the broker, of course. If necessary, the agent can limit the scope of the agreement to the property being sold by the developer. In addition, the buyer submits an offer to the developer requesting that the developer pay the buyer's agent a commission with a seller compensation addendum. The seller may counter the amount, but this is how you request compensation from a seller. Note: AAC R4 28 11 Federal 1 D states, a licensee shall not allow a controversy with another licensee to jeopardize, delay, or interfere with the initiation, processing, or finalizing of a transaction on behalf of the client. This prohibition does not obligate a licensee to agree or alter the terms of any employment or compensation agreement, or to relinquish the right to maintain an action to resolve a controversy. Arizona Realtor R. Magazine, February 2013. An Arizona Realtors R. Buyer-broker. Exclusive Employment Agreement, BBA, may be enforced against buyer if listing agent refuses to pay a commission. Facts: residential property is listed by a real estate licensee who is not a realtor R, nor a member of any multiple listing service. There is therefore no co-broke offering to other agents in the transaction. The buyer's broker has a BBEA in place. The buyer wants to make an offer on the property listed by the non-realtor R licensee. Issue: can the buyer's broker insist that the buyer pay the agreed-upon commission pursuant to the BBEA? Answer: see discussion. Discussion: the BBEA entitles the buyer's broker to the agreed-upon commission. In the event that the seller is unwilling to pay a commission to the buyer's broker has the right to collect that commission from the buyer as indicated in the BBEA that the buyer signed. The buyer's broker should counsel the buyer as to this commission obligation in contemplating the amount offered for the property prior to writing an offer to make sure the buyer understands their obligation beforehand. Beginning in August 2024, Arizona homebuyers must sign a written agreement with a licensed real estate agent before viewing any properties. This requirement is part of a nationwide settlement by the National Association of Realtors, NAR, designed to increase transparency in agent compensation and establish a formal relationship between buyers and their agents.